Now, obviously, the main feature of all of the strike action that we've been seeing, all of the conversation about policy, about nationalisation, what I've been talking about on my channel the whole time, is all downwind of the cost of living crisis, which is caused by inflation from increasing prices on the supply side of the economy. And the biggest thing that is impacted by the supply side kind of price increases and the supply shocks is the energy industry, because we were not energy self-sufficient. We ignored all of the people from the climate activists for the last 40 years who were telling us over and over and over again that we needed to be grilled a greener economy, a greener way of producing energy. They've been telling us for decades, and people just didn't listen, which would have had the side product of making ourselves more kind of but as well as energy efficient, but energy self-sufficient as well, which would have ignored the fact that at the moment are reliant so much on Russian gas, oil, things like that, and these things are obviously much more expensive now in the wake of the sanctions, in the wake of the Russia-Ukraine war. We rely so much on importing these things. As soon as the price goes up, as soon as OPEC decides that the price can go up, because at the end of the day, global oil prices are essentially just decided by OPEC. They decide how much this shit costs, right? And the way in which the off-gem kind of hamstring the futures trading on these particular commodity as well has led to a massive jump in price. Now, the person who has been leading the charge is a man called Martin Lewis, who runs the website moneysavingexpert.com. Now, he calls himself explicitly apolitical and always has been, and has just spent his entire time talking about the best ways to save money, ignores the systemic issues at play, and just says, okay, given this situation, here are the pragmatic steps that you can take to make sure that you save money, which is fine. That's a good thing to do. If you want to tell people how to cope with it on an individual basis, that's fine, as long as you acknowledge that the systemic issues are there as well, which he'd kind of ignored for a very long time. And so he kind of individualized a lot of problems, which are a lot more systemic, but don't think he ever really meant to do that, because that's not really in his remit specifically. But recently he's been on a bit of a tear. He's on a bit of a tear attacking the Conservative leadership for how little they've done about the energy bill crisis, right? It's looking like by January next year, with the increasing price cap, energy bills could be as high as £500 per month, which is utterly ludicrous, right? That could literally turn into a quarter of my yearly pay just on energy bills. That's absolutely crazy. Obviously, it won't be for me because I'm in a two-bedroom house, but that is a projection, right? We don't know exactly what it's going to be, but it is scary looking at these numbers. And he's changed tack. He's suddenly become incredibly politically motivated by this cost of living crisis, which really is it really is the kind of the Martin Lewis redemption arc that we really, really wanted to see. So here he is on the radio making a stark warning to the Tories about how they should get a grip on the rising energy prices moving forward. Let's have a look.
Hi guys, while Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss are racing to the bottom on the issue of asylum and
Ooh, let's listen in not double speed.
immigration, while they're trying to outdo each other on tax cuts, there doesn't seem to be a real plan in place to deal with the cost of living crisis. Boris Johnson, who is currently Prime Minister, has said he will do nothing different while he remains in number 10. And we have the news that energy bills could hit £500 a month at the beginning of next year. Money-saving expert Martin Lewis was speaking on the Today programme, where he said that the situation is dire and that Sunak, Truss and Johnson need to work this problem out. Good luck with that. Have a listen to what Martin had to say.
I've never seen anything like this, and because it's going to throw many households into a terribly difficult financial situation that will leave them making some awful choices. Let's be absolutely plain here. We know roughly what the price cap is going to be. It is set based on a published algorithm. The algorithm is published and it's based on wholesale prices. The October price cap is based on prices between February and mid-August, so we're nearly at the end of that. And the current prediction is prices will rise 77% on top of the 52% rise we saw in April, taking a typical bill to £3,500 a year. That's with the prediction I go for. Others say it will be higher. We're expecting it to rise again in January. Now, what that means, and just listen to this, that means year on year, from last October to this October, a typical house will be paying £2,300 a year more on their energy bills alone. Forget the rises in mobile and broadband and tax and everything else.
He's correct to point this out too. It's not just energy bills that are going up with CPI, right? All of the rest of these industries, especially the ones that are natural monopolies, such as broadband, such as housing, and as obviously energy that we've spoken about before, things which have no reason being in private hands when the demand is inelastic and the supply is constrained by the ability for these things So being monopolized because it's really difficult, because the barrier for entry is so high, the market is completely inelastic. So they have complete license to go ahead and price gouge everybody, right? And this is not on top of all of that, we might see spend extra £2,500 a year on energy, which is catastrophic, quite frankly.
And petrol and food on energy alone, £2,300 a year. And the package that has been put out so far to help the poorest homes who have the least financial resilience is a maximum £1,200.
Now, the time-
2,300 minus 1,200 is £900 extra. That is not sustainable for the poorest homes.
Now,
by the 5th of September, when we have a new Prime Minister, we will already be absolutely in the mire of this. And as I'm on your show and it sets the agenda, let me make a call. Rishi Sunak, Liz Truss, Boris Johnson, if you're listening, please go and sit in a room together, make a collective decision now of what help you can give, and make an announcement to forestall the mental health damage this is coming across the country. We cannot wait till the 5th of October. There needs to be action now. You're all in the same party. You should be able to work out some unifying policy, something for heaven's sake. So sit in a bloody room, decide what you're going to do together, take a little bit of collective action.
I've never seen him get this angry. I mean, it just shows that he cares, right? Like, again, I've had my criticisms of Martin Lewis in the past before. Do not get me wrong, I've had my criticism of him, right? But at the end of the day, I think you can hear in his voice how genuine he cares about the people who are going to be beset by this cost of living crisis. And again, but the problem is not just people's mental health might be damaged, which he said there. People are going to be made homeless by this. People are going to die because they can't heat their homes. This is catastrophic potential problems that are going to rise from the energy price increases.
And give the panicking people across the country a little bit of respite from this.
This man is a hero, and he's somebody who truly cares about the struggles that ordinary people are going through at the moment. The idea that bills are going to cost £500 a month is completely unsustainable. And even with the support, as he pointed out here, is £1,200, it's not enough to cover the rising cost. And this is just energy prices. As he said, this is not including rising prices of food and mobile and internet and council tax and all of these other things. This is a dire situation, and what you need is true leadership. And unfortunately, the person in charge, Boris Johnson, prefers to be playing soldier, playing pilot, messing about. There's a real crisis here, and Boris Johnson is just enjoying the last few days and weeks of his time in number 10. This is absolutely absurd. And along with that, you have the two leaders, or the two candidates who want to replace Boris Johnson, talking about immigration, talking about cutting taxes, completely disconnected. You need real leadership now. You need these, as he said, as Martin said, bring these three together, come up with a policy that will transcend Boris Johnson's administration and whoever replaces him, so that something can be in place from day one. Because unfortunately what's going to happen is they're not going to meet up, they're not going to actually listen to this, and they're going to have different policies, and when they take over, there'll be a bit of a party, and ordinary people will still be suffering, and then you'll
because they only care about the interests of capital. They have no needs. They have nobody in the Conservative voter base are people who are going to be affected by the cost of living crisis, right? No one who has 25 quid a year to spend spaffing away on being a Tory member is going to care about something like the cost of living crisis moving forward.
Then they'll start to talk about, perhaps they'll start to talk about what they're going to do. But at that stage, it will be way too late. These people do not understand the struggles of ordinary people. So they have no interest in actually fixing this problem, no real interest in providing solutions, providing the support that ordinary people need. And unfortunately, I think it's just going to get worse, even if you have Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss in charge, which is better than Boris Johnson, perhaps, but it's not.
Well, Liz Truss is going to be way, way worse. Sunak might be slightly better. I'm withholding judgment, but it's certain, absolutely certain that Liz Truss is going to be worse.
Any better anytime sooner. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, 100% correct. And you're looking here. Here's what he was saying here. Martin Lewis, awful warning for millions as he slams a zombie government, calling on Tory leaders to form a collective decision on how to ease the country's suffering. It's absolutely correct. Like, people are going to have to, people talk about like warm zones where people congregating in libraries to have to deal with this shit. And it's honestly, it's honestly not on. Let's have a look here. So if you're looking at a £200 direct debit at the moment, we're going roughly to £350. People will be panicking, will be desperate, and they're already panicking right now. and calls them to form a collective decision. But obviously, they fucking won't. It's absolutely true. Um, Following further rises in wholesale prices as flows of gas from Russia to Europe via the Nord Stream 1 pipeline dropped to 20% of capacity, we now forecast the off-gem price gap to rise to £3,420 in the fourth quarter of 2022 and £3,850 in the first quarter of 2023. This is dire. We're in absolutely dire straits, right? Absolutely dire straits. And wouldn't you know, at the same time as we're all dealing with the issues of how much we're having to pay extra, Shell's profits, £11.5 billion. They're paying out money to share. They're paying a huge amount of money to shareholders as well, right? There is no reason for these not to be in public control. I'm sorry. That money could have been used to put back into it to bring the cost of it down. But oh no, they don't have to. We can't impeach upon the whims of the capitalists, can we? We can't hurt the poor portion. Oh, and somebody please think of the shareholders of Shell rather than the poor little old people, freezing to death in the winter. Same as British gas owner Centrica profits increased fivefold to 1.34 billion as energy bills soar. They're fucking, as Eddie Dempsey would say, they're having a disco. They're having a disco and they just don't even care. Company reinstates dividend after suspending it for 3 years. As these price caps go up, they're happy to start paying out to shareholders again. It's absolutely ridiculous. And who would you guess is on the board of Centrica, the owner of British Gas? Wouldn't you know, it's ex-Tory Energy Secretary Amber Rudd, ex-Tory policy head Nick Park. Not only are they have the whims of their incredibly rich voter base and their incredibly rich membership base, they're also in the pockets of the big businesses who are making this money in the first place, and then they don't want to impact any of their future profits moving forward, because their plan after they leave number 10 is to get an incredibly high paid gig on the boards of these companies at the end of the day. They will do less than nothing whilst people in this country, it's freeze to death over the winter. These people are absolutely psychotic. People in charge of the Conservative Party, the people in charge of these companies, right? Utterly psychotic people. They do not care about anybody other than the money in their pocket, right? The fucking Elizabeths in there. I guess they're kind of the corollary to the Benjamins or whatever. Like, the money in their pocket's all that they care about at the end of the day, making sure they fleece the British people for as much as possible. It's time right now that the British people took these back into public control, and that this worked for the people rather than for the profiteers, because it's clear that it's not even working as it is right, that it should be right now. And what does Ofgem say about all this? What's Ofgem's plan to help poor people out with, increasing the cap to almost £4,000 a year by next year? We're going to increase consumer debt. So not only are you going to be in debt with a credit card company, not only are you going to be in debt theoretically for your mortgage, not only are you going to be in debt possibly in your bank overdraft, suddenly you're also going to be in debt to all these companies who are making billions and billions of pounds worth of profit. It's insane. This system makes no fucking sense. Self-disconnection is where customers use prepayment meters to pay for electricity or gas suffer an interruption to their supply because their meter falls to zero. Prepayment customers pay higher tariffs than most people and are often on lower incomes. With the surge in energy prices having a particularly heavy impact on disabled people, last week Ofgem officials met with online representatives of disabled people's organisations, and the head of consumer vulnerability and debt told the meeting that there were actions on the table to avoid so-called self-disconnections by prepayment customers this winter, but that this support will come at a cost. Again, it's poorer to be poor. They will try and fleece poor people because they know that they have no choice. Rich people can use their money to avoid paying more for these things. And it's always been the same. Remember that parable about how the rich man will spend £100 on a pair of boots and they'll last him a lifetime? The poor man must spend £20 on a pair of boots and will have to buy them 6 or 7 times because they're not as good quality, because they can't afford them, to drop all of that money at the start on the higher one, the higher quality pair of boots. It's exactly the same logic that's going into this, and literally it's just, I understand that it's our job is put all of these prices up for you, and you're the ones who might theoretically freeze to death come the winter, but we will happily make sure you don't die, but at a cost. We're going to make sure that you go into debt to us, literally debt trapping cold old people. This is absolutely psychotic. This whole country is psychotic. Neoliberalism is psychotic. It is again, as my good friend Dan Simpson has always said, capitalism is a death cult. That's what it is. It's a death cult of people who would rather watch the planet burn than see any of these profits be in any way impacted by some kind of public policy. It's utterly demented. like, how are we gonna? The only solution to this, right? I'm sorry, but the only solution to this, we can't just keep doling out money from the state to people on low bills. We can't just keep doing that. Again, that is what will lead to inflation. Printing or borrowing extra money to then give out to people as lump sums that go straight up into the energy companies, that is going to cause more inflation. What we actually need is to spend that money that would have been used just being funneled into those companies at the end of the day by giving the money to the poor people that then go straight to the energy companies. We could take all of that money and we could spend that money on nationalising these services instead, running them for the benefit of the people. In a non-inflationary manner, because infrastructure spending isn't inflationary, rather than causing more inflation by printing extra money into the pockets of poor people and then just them getting siphoned up by big businesses at the end of the day. Just like it did all the way through the pandemic. The exact same thing happens with our housing policy. Instead of having council houses that are owned by the state that then generate revenue while maintaining the state control of the asset, we have houses owned by private landlords with tenants who are too poor to afford the rent because the entire market has been monopolized by this class of people, then again get paid housing benefit from the state that then never goes to the person who needs it, which is the poor person, just gets sucked up by the landlords for them to reinvest back into property and further inflate the market, making it even less affordable, so that even more money has to get paid out in housing benefit, rather than the very simple measure, which is just have more social housing. None of these systems make any fucking sense whatsoever. The state should be using this as a tool to reduce these, and they would rather just take your tax money. This is your tax money, people, viewers at home, right? This is your tax money that they're taking and then using it to then put into the pockets of all of these companies that they allow to put up their prices as high as they want, because they've given them, a natural monopoly control over these inelastic markets. It doesn't make any sense. The only solution is nationalisation, and it's going to have to happen. And the Labour Party need to back that. Obviously, I've covered a load of issues with regards to Keir Starmer's opinions on nationalisation, but that would be retreading too much old ground. You can watch my previous content to find out my opinions on that for certain. So yeah, the only solution is nationalisation. There is the only way of making sure that this is done for the people is making sure the people are in charge. Simple as that.